the heavyweight battle going on in the top six. How much can that third line, be an X factor moving forward?
Well, moving forward and looking back, because the kind of game-winning goal in Game 6 is off Tarasenko's stick. And we got two youngerish. I guess Eetu is kind of aged out of being called a young player, but you've got two players with not a lot of time in the league. And one of the things about Vladimir is he's a talker and he's a hockey talker. So that's in practice. That's off the ice and certainly on the bench. It's so good to have a veteran guy that is constantly talking to the game. I like that when he played with Barkov too, because both Barkov and Reinhart are like that. You know, they can remember and articulate all the things that just happened on the last shift. So sometimes, and I don't think this happens in the finals, but during the regular season, younger players will sometimes mentally drift in and out of games. They just haven't built the capacity to stay wired for the 60 minutes. I really like the way Vlad engages those guys on the bench and keeps them wired into the game.
Front right, George.
Defensively, you guys have been very good in the first 3 rounds of shutting down the big guns, right? How happy have you been with that, and what kind of challenges do you have now facing you with all the big guys Edmonton's got?
I don't mean to be disrespectful to the other 3 rounds that we played, because we're talking about Kucherov and Pasternak. I mean, brilliant players, but this is a slightly, you said big guns, it's a slightly bigger caliber, more of a Magnum caliber. For all you hunters will appreciate that. Yeah, this is a different caliber. So the idea of shutting down isn't realistic. I'll say all the same things that every coach that's ever gone to try to limit them time and space. There's a reason for it. We're going to try to limit what they can do, and they will try to limit our best players as well.
Right side, second row.
Related to that, you got a chance to see your PK against their power play. How much did you feel like that was in shutting them down, or at least keeping them off the scoreboard? Was your unit? How much was your goaltender? And what maybe do you want to see out of them?
Yeah, it was our penalty kill, like Edmonton, has been very, very strong through 3 rounds. And when we went into the Tampa series, I think they had the #1 power play in the league at the time. I think where I would have credited the 4 on the ice in the first 3 rounds, you would have to credit the 5 on the ice this round. And Sergei had to make some, very, very difficult saves. So it's an interesting question, because so much of this, when you're going through your video, where are you going to allot your time into what you need to fix? So when you look at your penalty, there are pieces that we did like, and then there's some pieces that they're getting some chances that you don't like. How much of that can you actually fix, right? So first and foremost, you want to be really, really good at the structure that you have. And then in this series, there's more off-structure things that we have to worry about. So you cannot, though, then game everything that could happen. It's a real dangerous thing. And I think Chris I had mentioned that. You want to be real careful about how much you try to cover at this point. I don't know I think we're at game 101. I think we played 103 last year for the guys over here. I think we had 9 new guys, but we got a pretty good idea of what we're doing. We should have. And it won't matter. There's pieces of that we won't control.
Right side, second row.
I guess Rodrigues was signed to sort of kind of fill the role of Declare, but what has he kind of brought to your team and his ability to play in different kinds of lines and different?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good, because his game has, I like to think, grown and changed. But now what we've been able to is find versatility with him. So he has played left and right sides. He's taken face-offs. He's the line that he almost never played with all year is Bennett Tkachuk. Came in on Barkov's left, and it was analytically phenomenal for 4 months. So what would I do? I changed it, right? We had injuries, and that was good for us, right? You complained about him at the time, but then he had to go right wing over with Lundell, and that was really good. That's really where Lundell's season kind of took. It was when Rodrigues went with him, and then because of some injuries and some things that happened, he ends up originally on the left side with Bennett and Tkachuk, and it's good. Like, his game is really, really good. We started winning a little bit, and then we flipped them both on their natural sides. Matthews played his left, and they both played left and right so much they'll flip back and forth during the game, and he's a right-hander on it. So he has become this very versatile player for us. So whether it's injury or you're trying to change something or the different match home to road, you can play with that line a little bit. It fit very well with Carter Verhaeghe's history with us over the last 2 years, and that he rolls with Barkov for a while, it's really good, and then it gets a little stale, and he goes down with Bennett, and then that's good. So we kind of been able to keep Carter fresh, but you need people to move around into those holes he leaves, and Evan's been great with that.
Take a few more for coach, front right.
Yeah, Paul, what are your thoughts on Stephen Lorenz since he came back into the lineup, what he's brought for you guys, and then just what he brings in the room, even, again, we've talked about, but whether he's playing or not, just what he's able to bring for the group?
Yeah, he deserves a little bit of positive acknowledgement for his season, because we got into January, February, we went a long stretch where we were actually very healthy. He was out of the lineup for a very long time, and I'm not a huge believer in, you think you're making the playoffs, so you start rolling all these guys in to keep them fresh. If we're playing well and we like it, the guys that are in the lineup deserve to be in the lineup. So he stayed out for a long time, and then when he came back in, he had worked hard, and it was a very difficult thing, right? You sign here, you come in, you play a little bit. I started him on right wing, it wasn't his best position. I moved him to center, which I like, and then center left. And then he sat for a long time, and he's in his contract here. Like that's real for him. He wants to be a part of this, and he wants to win, but in January and February, he wants to play in the National Hockey League, he wants a job. So he did all that on his own. I was gonna hold his hand every day. I'm not going to lie to the player and tap him in the pads and say, hey, keep working, you're right there, you might go in tomorrow. It's 3 months later, hey coach, come on. So he deserves credit for, in a very, very difficult situation mentally, not letting up, getting better and stronger. He's a big man that can skate, he's physical. And one of these days we're going to see a bar down from him, because I see 1,000 of them in practice. Like he can shoot the puck, and I'm hopeful for him. It's almost a running joke between the two of us now. It's there. But credit to him that he did that all on his own.
Front left.
Paul, 2 questions. One that I've been unserious that I've been waiting to ask you for 2 weeks. But Pete DeBoer said that his wife made him put money in the swear jar a couple of weeks ago. Like, what would yours look like? Do you have a swear jar, a bucket, or what's that look like?
I think we had one about 15 years ago. My kids were in the late preteen years. We probably, my wife's is way bigger than mine. and yours would be too if you were married to me. That's completely understandable.
The real question, we talked so much about the 2 days off in between games. How will it help guys, like especially Bobrovsky and the workload that he's been getting lately? Will it be a benefit?
I don't know that there would be necessarily for Sergei. There's not necessarily a negative, because rhythm is just as big a deal for some of these guys as anything else. Once they get into a series, they want to keep rolling. Like for us, that was the Rangers series. It was the one that was every second day, and I think guys really like that. There's so much emotion that goes into these games. You almost want the rest of your part of life to have none, no uncertainty. Just keep the routine. Just the function of the length of the flight and the travel. I think it's very smart that there's 2 days off. It makes it fair. And at the end of the day, that's truly what this should be. It should be an even, both teams work so hard to get here. It should be a really even playing field with no real disadvantage in the logistics of how the series is run. So there shouldn't be 2 days for one team, but only 1 day for the other when they come back. This is right. It's the way it should be.
Last question, right side, third row.
I'm just curious, how do you coach a player like Barkov, who's so good offensively, so reliable defensively? What do you try to teach him, say to him in games like that?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I got this right, but what's that line for a doctor? Rule number 1: do no harm. So I'll take it to an extreme and use another player. I had Paul Coffey. So at that point in time, he only had 4 Stanley Cups and 3 Norris trophies. I probably wasn't adding a lot to his game as the head coach. We will interact over the course of a year on a very small amount on his specific game. There's not a lot to teach there. There aren't. It's more what we're trying to do and where he can fit his game into what we're trying to do. So there'd be a little bit of that. Most of it would be related to his role as the captain, the theme, the mood, how he interacts as a leader. Then one of the things that we would have talked about more last year is every one of these captains that we have is a completely different personality, and that he was encouraged not to change his to be a captain, not become a captain. Lead as he is. He just is the captain, and how he interacts with his teammates is fantastic. But it's not necessarily the rah-rah that we read about, right? You read that book, The Captain's Class. You have all these kind of different dominant personalities. It's really important that it's just him, so he kind of knows how to come to the rink every day. That was a really long answer, and I think that's probably more words than I've used to coach Barkey for the last 2 years, right there.
Any
Thank you.
change to the lineup?
Okay.
Lineup?